On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'!
The MMAjunkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMAjunkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMAjunkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMAjunkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
It's Wednesday, November 14th. Live from Sin City, we're the MMAjunkie Radio team. My name is Gorgeous George. We got the Goes to my right, Dan Tom to my left, Danny Auto producing. Guys, check it out. Straight out of Sin City, a few miles down the road. They are having a commission meeting right now to discuss the events that took place at UFC 229. Now, this is a short post that was made by John Morgan, who's down there covering it. I'm just going to read it as a whole, and I'd like to see your guys' reaction. Here we go. Keeping in step with the December 10th date currently tabbed for Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor to have their date before the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the supporting cast involved in the post-UFC 229 melee may also have their fates decided that day as well. NSAC officials today elected to extend the temporary suspensions of Dylan Dennis, Abubakar Nurmagomedov, and Zubaira Tukhugov, quote, through the resolution of formal disciplinary action, end quote. The case is expected to be ready for review and hearing for the December monthly meeting, though January was also floated as a possibility as well. Attorney General Rep. Caroline Bateman said that all three men have thus far failed to respond to initial complaints filed by the office and sent via certified letter. Esudilla Amiragayev and Rizvan Magomedov were originally on the day's agenda, but the two were pulled from the schedule at the start of the meeting. More on this in a moment, so keep it locked on the front page of MMAjunkie so we can keep tabs on this. What do you think, Goes? I guess not much there, but other than maybe some people aren't filing paperwork or responding like they should.
What could possibly be their play, though? They gotta go through this. Why not just get it over with? Why give them more ammo to be even more pissed off? Because we've seen when Nick Diaz has played that game, that commission can come down pretty strong. I would not want to give them more ammo, upset them more. We've also seen other fighters just come up and just plead their case, and sometimes it's not
apologize,
as bad. Right? Yeah, but and especially we were talking about this before the show, but with Conor McGregor trying to push a little bit before against the UFC. Granted, that's the UFC. This is the commission. But nobody's bigger than the sport, and you just can't be playing these type of games. They're not gonna help you in any way. I don't get that.
You know what? You're right. I think I just would have said I'm gonna face the music, say an apology. I was out of line. You always want to keep it short, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You say what you want to say, look them in the eye, shake some hands firmly, and show some remorse. I don't care how much of an ego or pride you have about apologizing or thanking people or whatever. At least say something that comes close to it, and then stand there and take the fate. I think you do score some points, and these people can just turn the page and go, all right, who's the next fool, right?
Yeah. And then you can keep it real in your next fight.
We'll talk about this again in December or maybe January when it's the same thing and none of the facts change. I mean, that's all out there on video. So, yeah, I'm with you there. So nothing really much has come out of that other than some extensions.
Okay.
And by the way, speaking of one of the parties here, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Did you see he's out in Africa?
No.
He's donating his time.
Yeah. Somebody talked about that. Ollie talked about that, right?
Really, really cool, man. He's out there donating his time.
He hasn't had any time to rest.
I believe it's in Nigeria, to be exact. And that's very, very big of the champion to do that. You know, these are the days when, I mean, if you go to Conor, I think around this time, wasn't he like on a yacht in Ibiza or speeding through?
To be fair, most
the
people
Mediterranean
would be too, right?
I think
Khabib's a rare breed.
I think so. Khabib, instead, you know, he met a lot of important people through Europe, including the president of his country, Russia, and now he's down in Africa, man. That's very impressive. I got to tip my hat to him. All right. So today we have 4 guests headed your way, and I might as well name them off now and give out some ideas of when you can expect them. That way you can sprinkle in and participate in the show by leaving us a question on the YouTube chat or calling in 866-522-2846. Our guest will be Ed Soares, the CEO of LFA, which is Legacy Fighting Alliance. They have their card coming up, their next card. It's LFA 54 on Friday, which you can catch on Access TV at 9 p.m. Eastern start time. We'll talk to him about that card. He's also a manager to many of the big stars out there in the sport of mixed martial arts, like Anderson Silva, Brian Ortega, Kat Zingano. And then they all have fights coming up, with the exception of Anderson. He's just a superstar. Tim Means will be another guest of ours. He's fighting Ricky Rainey at the Ultimate Fighter 28 finale here in Las Vegas. And that's coming up in a few weeks. So with the holidays and everything coming up, I figured we'd jump the gun and start getting a few of these fighters on so we can preview their upcoming competition. Ashley Yoder's coming off a win at UFC Fight Night 139. This past Saturday, she defeated Amanda Bobby Cooper by split decision. So we'll talk to her about that. That was a close fight, man. I thought they were going to give it to Cooper. If I'm being honest, I really thought that. I was glad they gave it to Yoder because I bet on Yoder. And it was close, and I don't think either side could be too upset. Lastly, Sabina Mazo will be our last guest. She's headlining LFA 54 on Friday. They're in Costa Mesa, California, by the way, folks. I know we have a large audience in California, and if you want to take in some fights, I've never had a bad time at an LFA card, especially LFA cards down in Costa Mesa. They're at the OC Fair and Event Center. We know it as the fairgrounds for those of us that are from the OC. It'll be Mazo versus Yari Waki. That is the main event, and that's for the LFA Women's Flyweight Championship. So those 4 guests, let me see, 3 of them will come in the second hour. Ed Soares will be on pretty soon. That's why you'll hear us take an early break in a couple minutes coming up. But after Ed, we'll have plenty of time to take some calls. And again, that number is 866-522-2846. Get in and participate. I mentioned the chat earlier. I've been trying to keep an eye on the chat a little bit more, and it's usually people just chatting and having a good time. Occasionally we'll get a question, but I'll try and pay more attention for anybody that really wants to leave a question. If you're too shy to call in, or just can't, you know, if you're at work and just don't have the ability to peel away and make a call, that's fine. Understood. Leave the question there. You may have to post it a couple times, but we'll try and keep an eye on it, or at least I will, and we'll answer it. You know, I'm not going to ask you what you should do if you have a scathing case of gonorrhea or something like that. I'm talking about combat sports questions, MMA. But what you should do is visit the doctor. I had it. No, I'm just kidding. I never had that. Have you ever had
gonorrhea? No.
Have you ever had a sexually transmitted? How about you, Dan Tom or Danny?
Oh, yeah, plenty. No, I'm kidding. Kidding. Knocking on wood. I'm knocking on wood there. Yeah,
Danny's
I was going to say no, but I wanted to see. What
Danny's
Dan
a musician, so he's probably had all of them.
Yeah,
but
the odds are insane.
The odds are insane. So, like, really, of us 4, I think one of us should have went, like, you know, me and but yeah, between gonorrhea and syphilis and scabies, I think was another one, and
I think it's 1 in 5, right?
The clapper.
1 in 5 people.
Something like that, yeah.
So if us 4
so
together,
the next guy that
whoever
walks
in is that guy.
If John Orlando walks in, we'd probably go, that's him.
We got him.
There could be 3 of us here. We'd point at John.
Or Matt from the sports book. Well, there you go. Danny, be honest. Come on, you've been on the road. Them, you know them chicks are chasing you down. All you musicians, right?
I'm 100% honest. I'm very safe and very careful.
Oh, okay.
Man, all I know is I got tested for like everything this year with all my health problems. So I got a bunch of tested for stuff I didn't even knew existed, and I don't have it. So that's good.
I was tested 2 years ago.
I'm a dirty dog, and I can't believe it, but I'm all right.
Dirty dog.
I'm all right, but I also have 10 years of fucking on you guys. How old are you, Danny?
32.
32. Okay, you had to think about that one.
So what's your fighting
33-ish?
Yeah, yeah.
So I see. I have like 15 years on you
39.
guys. I have only 9 on Goes.
Well, I'm 40 now.
But yeah, but no, I really can look the camera in the eye, look you guys in the eye, and go, nope, I'm good, man.
Raw Dog Garcia is good.
You don't know too, right? Because there's certain shit that you just don't need.
Well, because like Dan said, I've had enough testing that I think something would have come up. But yeah, be careful out there. And I heard the younger generation is having less sex.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
Yeah.
They're having less sex. They're basically playing video games. They're
and
on
they
their
got
phones.
apps now. They got all kinds.
They
of
got
stuff.
apps that just go you down, swipe left, bitch. You know what I mean? And instead, they're just like, no, they're at home. They want to play games. They just want to be on the computer. And some are getting, lazy, obese. I don't know, man. But you would think it'd be a lot easier. And it's
I'm fine
for whatever
with
reason,
that.
those numbers are down.
I'm good with that. Traffic, I'm done with that.
Well, but you know what?
Keep them
Teenage
numbers
pregnancy is so sad. When everybody's got someone either in their family or you just know somebody close, and that happens, man. I know we're all human. Mistakes happen, unexpected. But I guess I am hearing less of it. But then again, my friends' kids are getting older too, so who knows? And I'm not as nosy, but that's one thing. And you just would hate for some kid to, have those types of problems early on. You got to live your life, go to school and get a job, and then when the time's right, do what you got to do.
This would be a perfect segue for an ED read right now, by the way.
Yeah. I think the people have gotten a couple for the last couple of days, Roman or whatever. All right, so we're going to take this early break, and when we come back, we'll talk to Ed Soares, the CEO of LFA 54, headed your way on Friday on Access TV, 9 p.m. Eastern Start Time. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Injuries forced them to retire undefeated from MMA with a record of 0-0-0. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Get the radio channel numbers and a link to listen to your favorite NFL, college football, college basketball, NBA, or NHL teams sent to your smart device. Just go to SiriusXM.com/sportstoday and click Add to My Calendar. Our next guest can be followed on Twitter at Ed Blackhouse. He's the CEO of LFA. LFA 54 is headed your way on Friday on Access TV at 9 p.m. Eastern Start Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. They are going to be in Costa Mesa, California, our neck of the woods, at the OC Fair and Event Center. I've been to a few of the events there, including a couple of LFAs and an Invicta, and it's a great time, man. You'll see a lot of MMA peeps, because there's so many that live in Southern California or come down from Vegas. Now, the main event is Sabina Mazo versus Carol Yariwaki. That's the main event for the flyweight title. That's 125 pounds. Joining us now on the hotline is Ed Soares. What's up, Ed? How you doing?
Hey, good, man. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George, Goes, and Dan. Happy to talk about this card coming up in our neck of the woods, Costa Mesa, California, with a title fight that includes arguably your biggest star right now, Sabina Mazo, man. She's something else.
Yeah, she's definitely, definitely a prospect to be, to keep your eyes out on. I mean, she's, undefeated. She's had 2 highlight reel head kick knockouts. And one of their first head kick knockout actually went pretty viral. But like I said, she's a very exciting fighter, striker, young, very, very talented, and, looking forward to seeing her, fighting on Friday night against a very tough Brazilian that's coming in, who, is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and she's, coming with a very strong record and prepared, this is an opportunity for her to change her life.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Ed, let me ask you, how long did it take before the LFA TV audience and ticket sales would warm up to women headlining events? I mean, the UFC was pretty lucky because Ronda Rousey was kind of like a star from day one. But I was wondering, other promotions, did they ever have to go through a struggle, or maybe ticket sales were a little down at first and then they warmed up? Or have you guys been accepted just like the UFC was from day one?
I got to say, overall, we've been accepted, but we are very fortunate because the first time we had a female headlining a card, if I'm not mistaken, it was Andrea Lee. And Andrea Lee, now currently in the UFC, Andrea Lee, and she also was fighting in her hometown, so it made sense to have her, and it kind of was like the perfect storm. But fortunately, we haven't had too much issue with that, and people really embrace it, especially when girls like Sabina Mazo, and like I said, we've put quite a few girls, quite a few of our alumni, our female alumni, are doing really well in the UFC. Kind of like Macy Barber, she fought all her pro fights before she fought on contenders with the LFA, and Mackenzie Dern is the same thing. She fought all of her fights except one she fought for Invicta, but all her other fights were with us.
And of course, we all know that there was a merger that brought RFA and LFC together. So if we even include like Valentina Shevchenko, Holly Holm, you guys have a rich history in bringing some of those outstanding women, to the high levels.
Yeah. Definitely, and when you look at when you take into consideration the RFA legacy and LFA combined, we're responsible for over 20% of the UFC's roster now are alumni of our event.
Wow, that's a strong stat right there. I love it. Now, do you tell the matchmakers, I want at least, what's your input in that? Like, do you ever tell them, I want at least one women's MMA matchup minimum? Do you just let them do what they want? Do you emphasize a certain weight class or a certain theme, like all featherweights or mostly featherweights on this card, or mostly hometown people when we're going to this city? Like, what are your type of instructions or input on something like that?
Every show's a little bit different, and depending on the market and depending on, what sort of deal it is, it depends. I mean, unfortunately, we're not like the UFC. It's not like we could just come into town and, do a bunch of, all the media wants to do interviews with us and we're just selling out places. We're not. we have to work hard to get people there. But like I said, people that like to tune in and get to watch really top quality MMA in more of an intimate setting in comparison to being in a huge arena. Our arenas are anywhere from 1,800 people to 5,000 is the biggest arenas we go to. So you're able to see a high quality of MMA at a more of an intimate setting, so you get to just be a little bit more up close and see it. So I think it's a really great product, and we just keep, pounding the pavement and going back to these markets a few times a year. And we have a few markets, like our show last week in Phoenix. That market has really embraced us well, and there's a great pool of talent there, and we'll keep going back and putting on great shows. The same with Orange County this weekend. There's such a tremendous amount of talent, so many it's so talent rich here in Southern California that we're always able to put on some great competitive cards.
Yeah, and I'll say another thing too. You'll see some high quality MMA, some great matchmaking, for at a fraction of the cost of what a UFC costs. Like, I sat front row for $75 a couple years ago or something like that. And here's another thing: if you're a fan that just loves to run into fight your favorite fighters or other notables like referees that like Big John McCarthy, Herb Dean, they do these fight cards. You know what I mean? And other fighters that aren't necessarily fighting on the card, but they're there cornering. Arguably, I've seen as much or more at LFA cards because the arenas are smaller, and so you're running into them. They're very accessible. And whereas we are at a UFC at a T-Mobile, I mean, a lot of them you can't even get through like a gate or a tunnel to even see some of them to take a picture. So for a fan, it's actually a really, really outstanding opportunity. You should really get down to the OC Fairgrounds on Friday night, folks, if you want to have that type of experience on top of the good fights with a good seat. All right, we're talking to Ed Soares, the CEO of LFA 54. Remember, for those that can't get to the Orange County Fair and Event Center, they'll be broadcast on Access TV with a 9 p.m. Eastern start time for the main card. What do you have for Ed Soares?
Ed, all that being said, what George just said, every organization kind of has like a home. When the UFC is back here in Vegas, they just have this different swag about them. When it comes to LFA, being there in Orange County, California, or just Southern California in general, does that feel like home? And do those fans have a different feel than when you go other places?
Well, it's definitely home for myself. Being brought up here in Los Angeles and Southern California, it's always nice to be home. I'll be honest with you, on my part, I always feel it's a lot more stressful when you're doing a show in your hometown. But yes, like I said, it's so talent rich. There's such an abundance of people here. The arena's always filled. It's always full. It's got a great energy. So the fighters come in here and really leave it all in the octagon. So we always have great, incredible matches here. And like I said, it's so talent rich. It's just the fans here are educated about the sport. They get it, and it is always a good night of fights here in Orange County.
Every time I go to an event, no matter how big or how small, the one thing that always catches my eye is just how many young females are in the crowd, girls that are cheering on some of these new fighters. And with female MMA blowing up the way it is, as a promoter, is it almost easier to promote, say, like a 5-0, 6-0 female fighter than it would be a male fighter with the same record?
I'm not going to necessarily say easier to promote. I think every athlete is a little bit different, but I think when you start building up, I think if you were to take a 135 pound female that's 6-0 versus a 135 pound male 6-0, I think the male is going to have a lot more fights and a lot more experience to be at the peak, at the top of its division, versus women. It's just not as deep. There's just still not as many women as there are men, but the talent is getting there. So a 6-0, 7-0, like look at Macy Barber. She was 5-0, and she was on the main card of the 25th anniversary. So like there's not too many 5-0 men that would be doing that.
We also have our fight analyst here.
That makes sense.
Yep, we got it, Ed. We also have our fight analyst, Dan Tom, here with us. Dan, what do you have for Ed Soares?
Hey, Ed. We're talking a lot about MMA history a lot. UFC just had their 25 years, and here on the show, we're actually doing a bit of a history tidbit there. And one of the characters I brought up, who I find really interesting, is Joe Silva. Now, Ed, obviously you've worn many hats. Especially listeners of this show are familiar with your story, dating all the way back to music, club scenes, clothing, managing the best fighters, and now obviously CEO of LFA. But within a lot of those roles and the hats you had to have worn, obviously you've had a lot of interaction with matchmakers in general, and possibly, obviously I should say, Joe Silva. I just wanted to ask you, Ed, was there anything back in those days when you were managing and dealing with UFC brass? Obviously there was a lot of lessons you were able to take away that serve you well now, but from Joe Silva in particular, maybe the way he went about his business, was there any interaction with him, or just way that he kind of went about his business that you can recall and perhaps take away that serves you today?
Well, one of the things I always appreciated about Joe Silva is you never had to wonder what he was thinking, and he always told you the truth, and he always shot straight. And that's something I always appreciated about Joe Silva. He might not have always told you what you wanted to hear, but he really always told you what he thought. And to me, that always meant a lot to me. There was many times where Joe Silva and I did get into some little disagreements and even arguments. But you know what? And the great thing about him, too, is that once that argument was over, it was like no hard feelings. Like he'd call you 5 minutes later, and we'd sit on the phone for a half hour talking about something that has nothing to do with fighting. So, I respect Joe Silva a lot, and I also appreciate him a lot more now that he's gone, because I didn't realize at that time how difficult his job was, and what a great job he did at what he did.
Ed, you got a nice card here going, man. I've been looking at it from top to bottom. You have 4 undefeated fighters, 3 that boast a record of at least 3-0 or better, including the main eventer, Sabina Mazo at 5-0. You have 4 fighters with only 1 loss, including 3 that have at least, all 4 have at least a 4-1 record, with 2 of them having a 7-1 record, and the other main event gal 7-2. So you definitely have put together a nice card out here for LFA 54. Congratulations on that. And now, as we're wrapping up another year of LFA, can you already start pointing towards 2019 and maybe some of the goals that you have for the organization going forward?
You know what? Just to keep building. I feel that we've accomplished a lot in these 2 years that we've been in business. We put on 56 events, and I feel that it's a very nice accomplishment. But I'm still not satisfied. I feel that there's places where we can improve and get better. But my goal is to just keep putting on great events and keep cultivating the best talent, because nothing makes me happier than for the LFA to be able to play a role in the success of so many fighters. That's very fulfilling to me, and really that's where our focus on. I think next year we're really focusing on expanding our international distribution. So hopefully there's going to be more homes all around the world. But I think just keep doing what we're doing, keep producing top talent, and trying to get fighters to the next level. That's what we're trying to do.
I know you're with Access TV through like 2021, and I want to ask, can Access TV go international? I mean, they have for other fight cards in Japan, obviously, but like Tijuana, Mexico, or some of those cities in Mexico where MMA is thriving, is that something that interests you? Because arguably that show would be closer than, for example, you guys going to Minnesota or the Dakotas, or proximity-wise.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it. We've talked about maybe trying to go to Mexico. There's just a lot of other things too. It's just getting equipment down there, the production, trucks, all those sorts of things, and we don't have the sorts of budgets that someone like a Bellator or UFC has. We're still running this whole company doing 30 shows a year with 10 employees, 10 people, under 10 people working for us. So we're still on a very skeleton crew, and I think that expanding internationally would be a great step. But I think before we expand and do events internationally, I think we need to expand our distribution so we could become popular in that market before we go there to try to put on a show. That's my philosophy. So I'd love to be able to get the content there and build up a little bit of a following before we actually go.
Ed, as we all know, you also manage a lot of big names in the sport, and I just want to ask you about one of them because I know a lot of them are tied up. Zingano's got to fight. Ortega's got to fight. How about Anderson Silva? I've seen him. I think Yoel Romero wants a piece of him, but he wants a piece of McGregor. What do you think? When do you think we'll see Anderson Silva fight next, and who do you think it might be? If you can give us a name or two, if you don't want to tip your hand.
And you know what? I really don't know who it could be. There's been a lot of names circling. Yeah, you know, the McGregor. I've heard that I heard Yoel wanted to fight Anderson. We've heard Israel wants to fight him. Nick Diaz. Is a fight that I've heard. You know, Nick Diaz is very interested in that fight. It was a no contest. Both, so there's a lot of variables. I believe you're going to see Anderson fighting in the beginning of next year. This week we're actually going to be meeting up with Dana and hopefully trying to figure all this stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Would you guys ever be interested in a part 3 with Chris Weidman, where there's a definitive type of finish that includes the skill sets, and not to take away from, hey, checking a leg kick is a technique, but you know what I mean, something that I guess plays out.
Of course. I think there's so many different possibilities out there. There's so many great fights that could still be made with Anderson. I feel that that's a great fight. That could be a potential fight. I think a GSP fight, Anderson would go and meet him at a catch weight of some sort. I think him and GSP would be a fight that, man, everyone would win with that. Both Anderson and GSP would make a lot of money. It would be great for the UFC, and most of all, the fans would love it. I just think there's so much potential with Anderson. I mean, Anderson, granted, he is 43 years old. People say that he's still, he doesn't look like he used to. Regardless, I still believe that Anderson, well-trained, with a good mind and well-trained, is still a difficult fight for anybody.
I agree.
Still is.
Yeah.
He's still Anderson Silva, and that's the thing that sometimes people forget is nobody has done what he was able to do. You know what I'm saying? And the other thing, they say that Demetrius Johnson broke his record. He did technically, but by today's rules, Anderson had 11 title defenses too, because to me, against who was the guy that missed weight?
Travis Lutter.
Against Travis Lutter, that doesn't count as a title defense, but Anderson may wait and submitted him in the second round. So, I mean, to me, I think that should be a title defense.
Yeah, all right. Well, first things first, on Friday, it's LFA 54 with Sabina Mazo on that fight card versus Karol Yariwaki for the flyweight title. So we'll keep an eye on that. And, folks, you can catch the fight on Access TV. That's Channel 340 if you have DirecTV, like Goz and I. Otherwise, check your local cable and satellite listings. And the fight starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's always great to catch up with you, Ed. Thank you, as always, for the time.
Hey, thank you. Hey, thank you, guys. Thanks, as always, and thank you for always supporting the LFA and all the guys. Thank you.
All right. Take care. You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right. That is Ed Soares. Follow him on Twitter, @EdBlackhouse. Right now, we're going to take, let's take the break, right? We got to get the big break out of the way. As long as Danny Olkers is ready to go, let's do that. It's MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM's Fight Nation Channel 93.
This one's George, and that one's Goes. Now, feel their wrath.
All right, we're back. That was Ed Soares from LFA. We'll have another LFA guest on in the second hour. It'll be Sabina Mazo, who headlines LFA 54. Big shout out to Ryan Bevins for lining up these interviews. Tim Means and Ashley Yoder will also be two of our other guests, and again, they'll be in the second hour. John Morgan, who is at the NSAC meeting, he mentioned something else that kind of sucks, because I've always liked Cody McKenzie, but I guess he was caught with a urine substitute. According to John Morgan, he says he was caught with a urine substitute and has no-showed today's hearing. With aggravating circumstances, he's facing a potential 4-year suspension. Wow. Here's other news. Sean O'Malley is suspended for 6 months, eligible to return on March 6th. He was suspended following an anti-doping violation that was flagged by USADA, which O'Malley said, hey, I have my reasons. He actually came clean on his own because, as you know, it's not announced now by the organization or by USADA. They keep it hush until it's been resolved. The only problem is when you hear of a fighter pulling out, you start to think, could that have been a USADA subject, you know? O'Malley's test showed the presence of ostarine, a selective androgen receptor modulator, and he must still clear his case with USADA. And this is just the 6 months he's been given is by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. As pointed out by Morgan in his article, USADA and the NSAC have traditionally remained closely aligned when they give their decisions. So USADA more than likely will say, well, this is what we feel. And it'll mirror, I guess, the NSAC. Okay. I think we should do the phone call, yeah. Danny, please patch in Hal from Chicago. And if we have any other callers, let me know. Hal from Chicago, what's up, buddy?
Well, I'm here to give you the underdog pick of the week, a.k.a. the quote-unquote mush pick of the week, according to the big dummies out there. But Neil Magny getting seriously disrespected here against the Ponzi scheme. I understand. You know, Ponzi hits hard. Neil always goes down in round one at some point, but, you know, he likes to get smacked around before he does his job. And I think his length and his wrestling is going to give him some problems, you know. He's going to fight him against the fence. And here's the other thing. Another interesting, strong trend, though I know sometimes you want to fade trends, but this is a strong trend here. Did you know that Neil Magny is 3-0 in his last 3 fights where he's going into hostile territory? He beat Kevin Gastelum in Monterrey, Mexico. Then he knocked out Hector Lombard in Australia, and Australia is like a second home for Hector. That was like hometown for him. And then recently, of course, he beat Craig the White in Liverpool. So how about that? You know, this guy knows how to fight in hostile territory.
Thanks, guys.
Joe's just put a bet in over here at Mandalay Bay on Ponzinibbio.
No, that's a great point.
They take your pink slip?
Oh, you guys heard that?
Yeah.
Oh.
I saw you give him cash, but then I saw you pull out the pink slip.
Yeah, they take pink slips and everything.
All right.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I think those are great points by Hal. I mean, I'm on the other side, but
Gastelum, the one in Australia, and what was the third one?
Craig White in London.
Craig White in London.
Again, that was a replacement. But, no, those are all great points. Magny's an overachiever. He comes to life in those later rounds. Yeah, man, he's definitely a spoiler. I'm on the other side. I'm picking Santiago Ponzinibbio, but for the price that it's currently asking for, I'm not laying that for Ponzinibbio. So as far as betting goes, yeah, I would say it's dog or pass, even though I'm on the opposite side of picks wise. You're not completely crazy there, Hal.
Yeah, and if that isn't enough, I'll give you one final. Neil Magny is an Army veteran. It was Veterans Day this week. He's fired up. He's going in there. USA! 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 He's going to bring it home for the troops and for me.
All right, man. We'll see it. You know, I heard Hal yesterday as I was driving. I was driving home and I caught the replay on Sirius XM. And I was laughing at all the woos he had on yesterday's call.
Yeah, yesterday was one of his best calls ever.
Yeah, that was good. All right. I think it's time we should do the daily debate. I have one more idea for the buzzing sound, and then after that, I don't know what we're going to do here. But it's time to do the daily debate. You ready for this, Dan?
Yeah.
Tom? Ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. The question for today is, Benson Henderson recently re-signed with Bellator MMA, which he stated could be his final contract. Will he win the lightweight title, guys, before he retires? Yes or no, with an explanation, of course. I want to lay out a few things. We don't know how many fights, because if it's an 8-fight contract, I would think we would lean more towards yes. If it's a 4-fight contract, which is the average, that might change your answer. If it's a 2-fight contract, you actually might lean towards no. But the reason I say this is because I don't think he's waiting for the winner of Chandler and Brett Primus. They're already set up, and that's in December. I think Henderson will take a fight before then, which right away, if it's a tough guy, that starts the whole process of, well, you know, can he get past that fight to get to the winner? But without knowing that, we'll just have to wing it. You go first, Ghost. What do you think?
Man, it's such a tricky question because I would say if the road to the title goes through Michael Chandler, no.
They've already fought and lost.
And there was plenty of evidence that I just don't see that changing. But if it doesn't, I think he does have a good chance. But I think that Chandler's going to prevail in his fight, so I'm going to say no.
Yeah, Henderson might give Primus a taste of his own medicine. Boom, here's a calf kick for you, my friend. What's it called? The premoral femur nerve or whatever that Primus attacks. Benson Henderson's one of the first ones that started enacting the calf kick about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah, if Chandler wins, I don't like Henderson's chances because now Henderson would have to go through Chandler, and he's already lost once, and I thought it was pretty convincing. So imagine if it goes down 0-2. Now what's he going to do? But here's another factor. Chandler's only said his contract's not that long. You know, he says he could still become a free agent yet again for those that hope that maybe he'll go to the UFC one day. It's also not deep. In fact, if I'm going to play that card, a Primus fan could call in right now and go, well, hey, Primus got Chandler the first time. Who's to say he's going to get him the second? Or who's to say Chandler's going to get him the same way Henderson might not get Chandler? So I understand. Keeping it real here. A lot has to do with the length of his contract, but he's getting older. He's past his peak form. I think he's a draw for sure. He's done outstanding as a coach, by the way. I've seen him in the corner of many fighters. And he's not just a John Crouch tag-along. I mean, he's actually going into rings and cages and giving instructions. So I really, really like that he's slowly transitioning there. I'm going to go with no, man. I think his best chance would have been a few years ago when he first got to Bellator. But as they get older, it just gets tougher. How about you, Dan Tom?
I feel like if we're putting odds on this, the odds would be against Benson Henderson to get another title. But if we're talking about it from an odds perspective, I feel like those odds would be inflated. I feel like they would not be giving Benson Henderson enough credit. Yeah, he got beat by Michael Chandler, but if we're playing the contract game, that's not an end-all, be-all. We don't even know if Michael Chandler is going to get past Primus, because if we're going to play that math, well, Chandler wasn't able to get past Primus. Granted, there were some circumstances with that matchup, but I will argue, though it was convincing, it wasn't that it was a landslide. I mean, in fact, you would argue that Benson Henderson showed paths to victory for maybe not him the next time he faces Chandler, but for someone else that faces him. If you can survive that storm, if you capitalize on those points where Chandler has to recover and explode, we're all big Chandler homers, we're all big Chandler fans here. Definitely not trying to take anything away from him, but I would argue not as invincible as, perhaps that comes along with the being the Bellator golden boy, if you will. And I don't mean that as a slight. I'm just saying that Benson Henderson chances in a rematch much more than people would give him credit for. And let's not forget, Benson Henderson has experience fighting the best in the world, multiple weight classes. He's taken fights at short notice before, done well. Had some of his best performances on short notice, in fact. Maybe up a division, sure. But the fact is, he has the experience there. Bellator is not that deep. I could very easily see Benson Henderson sliding in, filling in for somebody for a title fight. That title fight being a little closer than the other person expected, even if they're favored to beat Benson. And wouldn't you know, would you guys be surprised if Benson Henderson came out at the other end of a split decision of a close fight? Boy, he's made a career of that. I'm going to go yes.
Yes, no. There you have it.
I'm a no.
Oh, you're a no?
Yeah.
Okay. No, yes. There you have it. There's today's daily debate brought to you by the MMA Junkie radio team. Most said no. It was 82% with no. 18% said yes. 559 votes registered. Thank you, Junkie Nation, our readers and listeners of the site. All right, we are good on commercials. We can just sail all the way to the finish line. All right, speaking of possible future fights, remember Cowboy when he won his fight this past weekend over Mike Perry? Two things. Mike Perry didn't break his arm. He actually said it himself. Thanks, Cowboy. You broke my arm. Ha, ha, ha. Played it off kind of smoothly. Took the loss like a man, not like a champ. But it turns out he says his arm isn't broken, which is good. Now, aside from that, Cowboy was asked, okay, what do you want to do? Continue at welterweight or lightweight? He said, nah, man, 55. I want to make a run at this. They've already talked to me about my next opponent, but I just can't say anything yet. Well, he didn't wait that long to let the cat out of the bag. He's basically saying, I'm signed. I'm ready to go. Just waiting on you, Conor McGregor. That caught me by surprise. Now, years ago, those guys had a little bit of heat on a dais. You know, Cowboy would talk about, hey, in the back, this guy's really quiet. Over here, he's piping up. But then at the same time, I always felt like, well, that's just respect between two superstars. They probably are okay with each other. But now this fight's back. I forgot about it, man. I'm really convinced that Diaz 3 would be Conor's next fight so he could step aside for Tony Ferguson versus Khabib. I knew there was a 1% chance versus Anderson, maybe a 5% chance versus GSP, maybe a 10% chance versus the Khabib rematch. But I would have told you 1% versus Cowboy. Just caught me off guard. That said, I like it.
You like it?
Yeah.
I like the matchup. I just don't know if it's to that level. I don't know that it'll sell to the level of other Conor McGregor fights. I think if you were to match him up with Nate Diaz, it probably wouldn't do maybe what the last Conor fight did.
No.
But I think it would be in that same ballpark. I don't know that a Cowboy fight does that. I feel like it almost knocks down Conor's stock a little bit.
See, Cowboy's more popular than Eddie, and Conor's more popular than 2016 Conor. He is coming off a loss, and I don't know how much that affects him, but he seems to be impervious to that because he technically was coming off a loss versus Floyd when he fought Khabib. When he fought Khabib or Nate for the first time, none of us expected 1.5 million pay-per-views. That caught everyone off guard. Even though they had limited time, what was it, 10 days? Those guys, you know, they went at it. I think it was in Torrance at a UFC gym there. They built it up. People bought it. I really think this fight could do well. I'd say 1.5 million pay-per-views because it just, for the plain fact that it starts, Conor's one of the two parties. But Cowboy's pretty popular right now.
What question does it solve, though? Because when it comes to Conor McGregor, what's intriguing about the fight is there's either a belt on the line or there's a question that needs to be answered, right? This fight doesn't have that. So what does it mean for him to beat him?
I think Conor could make it into bad blood. He'd find an angle. I can't think of one right now.
Cowboy doesn't really say much back. He just has this smirk, which kind of makes him cool.
Right.
But at the same time, on this stage, I don't know if that's going to help.
Yeah. He'll answer back in different ways, but there are times where you can. In other words, if you go to Cowboy first and go, Cowboy, what does this fight do for you? Why'd you take it? He'll say, hey, man, it's just another guy. You know, I want to get paid. And he'll leave it alone, like you said, smirk time. But if Conor goes first and then pokes at Cowboy, then you'll see Cowboy have to retort, and I think usually he might say something. I don't know, man. It seems like with maturity, he's also just seen through all of the facades out there, and he's not concerned about it. He doesn't want to waste that energy. But I think they could build it. I think Cowboy would realize this is a business opportunity, and maybe he gets some pay-per-views out of it. UFC owes it to him, man. He's fought a lot. He's done well for the company. So I don't know how close he is to the end. Are you feeling this matchup? You're kind of quiet over there.
Yeah, no, I think it works. I think it works for the reasons you guys said. Build up for whatever that's worth to you. Works for a matchup. It's a deceptive matchup. I see people arguing both sides of it already. I think it's a dangerous fight for Conor. Does that mean that I don't favor him or that the odds makers won't favor him? No, I think the odds makers probably would slightly favor him because the public action, you got to think of that too. So it's already got that polarizing effect that all Conor McGregor's fights have, which make them harder to break down because there's just so much minutia that goes surrounds it. So yeah, I mean, it checks all those boxes. The big question for me that's stopping me from even getting excited about it is Are we going to get Conor to the table? That's the one thing. I think the UFC can make use of it, especially in the new ESPN era. I think you could build a card around it no matter how you wanted to do it. Yeah, I could see theories on why, you know, some would think, oh, this is a good pickup fight for Conor, or, you know, this is that middle ground, or it's a popular name, a winnable fight, which I would be careful with throwing that around too loosely. But again, are we gonna get Conor to the table here for you know, say what you will about this price tag, whether it should be or whether he should be in this echelons now and forever now that he's put himself in. Whether you agree with it or not, there's some truth to that.
Yeah. Well, it caught me off guard, but I guess I gotta lie. I can't lie. I gotta admit I was interested. I gotta lie. You know me. I gotta lie. So everything I said doesn't count. Here we go with Showtime from Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's your time.
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
What's up, buddy?
Showtime.
Nothing much. Hey, man, I want you guys to hear something right quick. Listen to this for a second. Sorry about that, man. I had to, man.
I can barely make it out.
Yeah, what was that, Showtime?
That was Ric Flair, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could barely make it out. I'm a big Ric Flair fan.
Yeah, that was the bit when he said he spent more money on wasted liquor than some people made in their lifetime. Man, that guy was a showman, man. He was a hell of a showman, him and Dusty Rhodes, man.
I just remember being a kid, seeing him, thinking, I want to be like that guy when I grow up.
Man, I want to be at. Just think about this, man. Ric Flair was wearing gaiters in the 80s, man. Gaiters with the silk shirt. He had kind of that Dan Johnson kind of, you know, the open shirt with the chest showing. Yeah, Don Johnson. Yeah, from Miami Vice. He had that little look going. The gaiters with no socks. Man.
All right.
I just had it.
Giving some love to Ric Flair. Love it, Showtime. You can always call in with that stuff. Right now we are up against the clock. We got to get to the top of the hour break. It's 60 seconds long, so we'll be right back in about a minute and 20 seconds. All right, we're back. It's the second hour here on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. We're going to be talking to Ashley Yoder in just a couple minutes. She came away with a split decision win over Amanda Cooper at UFC Fight Night 139 this past Saturday. On one of the judges' scorecards, Cooper actually won 30-27, but the other two came with 29-28, and I mean, what can we say? She advances, I guess. Going back to Joe Silva, one thing you can count on with Joe Silva was usually winners from a fight took on winners from another fight. they've kind of strayed away from that a little bit more nowadays. But he always made it kind of like an unofficial tournament type style, you know.
A little bit, right?
Yeah. So I imagine Ashley Yoder will be fighting another young lady coming off a recent win or an upcoming win, if that's okay with her and if she's healthy. That's what we plan on asking her when we catch up with her. She's ready to go?
She is.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Danny, for lining up Ashley Yoder. Ashley Yoder joins us now on the hotline. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George, Goes, and Dan. Congratulations on your win this past Saturday.
Thank you guys so much.
We were just going over the results. One judge had it 30-27 for Cooper. The other two came back with 29-28. I was happy when they yelled out your name because I bet you I had you in a parlay and you kept my parlay alive. But as I was watching your face, I could tell the fight meant a whole lot more to you than my simple $25 parlay. It looked like you were crossing your fingers and saying one last prayer and looking upstairs or whatever it took to get your name called. But what were those 10 seconds like as you're waiting to hear who the winner is?
Well, you know, like on the side of it, being like waiting for your name to be called, my last 3 fights in the UFC have been, there's, you know, I'm very open to tell you I lost a fight. You know, I think I lost against Angela Hill, but I definitely don't believe I lost my fight against Justine Kish or McKenzie. So, you know, you never know. Like, you know, just as much as people feel like I lost this fight, which, you know, I've been in that same boat, it can go either way. You never know what the judges are looking at. You don't know. You just don't know, you know, at the end of the day. And, you know, I knew going into the third it was going to be close, and I had to put the pressure on. So, you know, that's kind of where that was at. But you just don't know. And when it comes to decisions, some people are going to say it was wrong. Some people are going to say it's right. You know, that's why they tell you not to let it go to the judges. But unfortunately, you know, it's easier said than done. So, you know, I really, really, really wanted that finish, and kind of mad at myself because I tried something new instead of actually going for the rear naked choke in that last minute. I was actually just trying to do a neck crank that I had just learned, and I should have went for the choke instead. But, you know, that's just a learning experience, so you never know.
Do you think if you would have went for the rear naked choke, you would have gotten it? I mean, she was still defending two hands to one, but you were there.
If you would have looked, she was holding my hand, but if you would have looked, her neck was exposed. So I don't know. You never know. You know, you could see, hey, I could have gotten it. I couldn't have gotten it. You know, I just, in my head, I was trying something new, and, you know, my coach that wasn't able to make it there, he was so mad at me because he's like, that's not what we worked on. Like, well, you're not here, so. But, you know, I was just trying to get anything I could at that point, and I knew there wasn't much time left, but, you know, I just gave it 110%, so.
Were you surprised that she was the initiator of some of the ground fighting? You know, by going for takedowns?
Oh, yeah, because if my takedown defense looked so bad in this fight, and honestly, to be completely honest with you, I was, like, really disappointed in myself in that. I wasn't expecting her to want to really go to the ground with me, let alone, like, go for a takedown. So, you know, it's just one of those things that, like, I think going into a fight, and it's learning is, you know, you can't expect a fighter to fight how you want them to. You just have to go in there and be the best version of yourself. And, you know, I think as much as I wasn't happy with my performance, I think that there's breakthroughs that you're going to see in my next fight. Like, I just feel like I'm chipping away, and it's coming. So even though, you know, there's a lot to work on, I feel like the Ashley that I want to bring out is starting to come. So.
Ashley Yoder is our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. She is coming off a win over Amanda Cooper at UFC Fight Night 139. All right, Ashley, allow me to be a fan here. I'm a member of the media, but I truly am a fan of mixed martial arts. And I know that for fighters, one of the scariest things is going on social media and seeing fans say, you should have done this, you should have done that. You know, it's frustrating because some of them are so callous in the way they say it. So I'm going to try and say it how I was watching it. And remember, I had a parlay on you, right? But every time you had the spacing and you actually threw a 1-2 and it landed, it hurt her, right? And I was wondering, why didn't you throw more? That's what I was screaming at the TV. Throw more, because even though she's got her boxing background, you could tell your length was troubling her. Now, I also took into consideration, okay, she's getting tired. They've also had some grappling going on here, and maybe she didn't expect that. And the air is thin, so at the same time I was calming myself down. But I really liked when you were just throwing straight punches; they were being effective. So that's my main question: is just why didn't you throw more of those?
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, that, like I said, when I say I wasn't happy with my performance, going into this fight, before I left, I spent my last 3 weeks in Denver. Getting up to that point, I hit like this breakthrough probably, you know, a month before my fight. So the week, maybe 2 weeks before I left for Denver to come train, my coach was teaching me this combination, and he, you know, I couldn't get it. I was getting frustrated. It was like a slip to the outside, throw a cross, slip to the outside, uppercut cross, come over the top with a hook and another cross. Sorry, if you don't follow me, just kind of listen for a second. So then, so it was getting really frustrated. This combination started clicking. Not when I was hitting mitts, but when I started sparring. And when I mean like it started clicking, I was throwing multiple punches at a time. And I was like, oh my God, this is what they mean when they want me to throw more. So then I go to Denver, and, you know, I kind of, instead of like keeping up on that same, like, you know, working on that combination or just allowing myself to kind of push through more than a couple of combos, I think I just got set back in my old ways and kind of just 1-2 and almost like just staying there instead of like throwing more, just kind of looking at like what happened.
Yeah.
And that was like, you know, part of the situation that I wasn't impressed with myself, because that's the side, like, I want to say, like, I had a breakthrough. I definitely did. I think it's just going to take some more time and, you know, perfecting that. And there was a lot of changes last minute in this fight camp, all the way up until that door closed. Like, everything was going wrong. I got my hand cut when I was getting my hands wrapped. They gave me the wrong outfit. You know, just like little things like that. People on the outside might not understand, but, you know, when you have like all these odds against you, plus you're back against the wall, you're like, well, maybe this is a sign. Like, you know, they're trying to get me to stop. So, yeah, I was. If you followed that, that's kind of like where I'm at when I wasn't impressed with my performance. But I do believe, like, I 100% agree with you. You know, I wish I could have go back in time and threw more, because there was a couple times I did stun her. And if you hear my corners in what round was that? Second round, I hit her with a cross hook, and she kind of just like stared at me.
Yeah.
And they're like, go, 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 she's rocked. And I was like, oh shit, she might be rocked. Oh, sorry. I was like, so then, you know, it's just things like that you got to work on. And, you know, I enjoy martial arts, and I'm always wanting to learn to be better. So hopefully, you know, it really clicks in my next fight, and I think it will. So
I got news for you. That voice you heard, she's rocked, that was me all the way from Las Vegas yelling that.
I heard you. I was like,
okay, yeah, that wasn't your coaches, it was me. More of that. Throw, woman. No, you know what? We're supposed to be objective here, but we've called your fights over at Bama. I don't know if you remember that. Goes and I called your fights at Bama, and we're from SoCal, so you being from Temecula, I was kind of rooting for you. But anyway, nothing against Cooper, but that's just the way it is. All right, let me turn it over to the co-host here. Dan, we'll go with you first this time. What do you have for Ashley Yoder?
Hey, Ashley. You know, just to kind of add on to your past interjection there, as far as like your you know, a run of close fights that could have gone your way. For what it's worth, I do second that. You know, a lot of those fights could have gone your way, and I'll even go further back to your amateur career when I actually first came across you, because I was cornering a teammate of mine, Jake Swinney, who had the fight right after you that night. That was Tough Enough, and you actually, you know, you made a good account for yourself, if I do say so myself, from what I remember that fight against another future UFC fighter, and Jocelyn Jones-Leitbarger. Sure, you came up on the short end, but it was a competitive fight from my recollection, and it says so here. It was a split decision. Can I just ask you about that fight, if you remember it, more specifically, because if you look at it, Ashley, you were on a 4-fight losing streak to start your amateur career, and you could have just said, hey, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. I'm going to go ahead and call it quits and go do something else. But you kept going after that Tough Enough fight that I just referenced. Do you remember that fight, A, and was there an important moment and motivation that kept you going through and after that point?
Well, I was on a 3-fight losing streak. I was 5-3 as an amateur. So, but yes. So when I started my amateur career, just to kind of give you like a background, I started in Indiana. I didn't really, I didn't know I stood right-handed my first MMA fight ever. I didn't really know what I was getting into. So my first 4 fights that I had as an amateur were in Indiana, and I didn't really know what I was doing. So, but I had this aggression. You know, I had lost my brother. I was doing it for a purpose of like anger management. So when I moved to Temecula, I got that fight. I had only been up close for probably, I'm not even sure. So I moved in here in July, and then I'm not sure the date, but I fought Courtney Casey, and it was kind of like I didn't know who she was. You know, I wasn't even really familiar with Team Quest's team. But they're like, hey, we have this fight for you. So I went in, and it was a nightmare of a fight. And then I took that Jocelyn Libarger fight 2 weeks after that. And once again, you know, not knowing who Jocelyn Libarger was, apparently, you know, just being just a stud fighter, I wasn't aware of that because I'm from Indiana, and I wasn't into the fighting scene necessarily at that point, like knowing people. I just kind of did it for my own, you know, anger management issues. And it was cool, like, coming out to California and starting to learn the different disciplines. Like, you know, I didn't know what Muay Thai was. And so, you know, coming to Muay Thai and doing all this other stuff, you know, it was pretty cool to be a part of. So when I fought Jocelyn Libarger, yeah, you know, it was a split decision. Once again, that choke I had, it's kind of funny because I won't ever forget this, the choke I had in the 3rd round. And I just remember it was the first time I ever choked someone that I could hear them involuntarily being like, I was like, oh my God, like, is she choking on the side? I didn't know what was going on. But, yeah, so it was a really close fight. And, you know, some people, you know, if you were calling that fight, like, I remember going back and listening to it, you know, they thought I had it. And I'm just very, you know, when I lose a fight, I'm very, you know, I understand it was probably close and there's things, you know, that I could have did better. But in that fight, I do think, you know, she had the better exchanges. She got the takedowns and things like that. So, and I was still brand new to the scene of, like, really being a part of Team Quest and, you know, just becoming more of an MMA fighter than just a brawler. So, yeah, that fight was actually a lot of fun. And later on, you know, Jocelyn ended up going to the UFC. So, you know, Casey Courtney. Is that how you? Yeah.
Courtney Casey, yeah.
Yep. I know, 2 first names. But yeah, so being able to see these people that I competed against at amateur level and they're, you know, we're doing well. So that's kind of cool to take away too.
And just one follow up on that, since you mentioned it. You know, I became aware of you then and a fan following your career, but I really became a fan, kind of what you mentioned, once I found out your backstory. You know, as far as, you know, representing, you know, your lost loved ones as you do so well, by the way. And I just got to ask you, you know, I almost felt like going into tears, and I don't even know your story, you know, that well. When it came to your post-fight interview, was that something, you know, as far as the catharsis, is that really up there for you? Was that something you were really anticipating? Because it seemed like it meant so much to you, as it should.
Yeah, it's well, you guys might not know this, so. Technically, my birthday's in October. I don't celebrate it then. My brother passed away on my 18th birthday in a car accident. So dealing with that, this time of year is really, really rough for me because October 20th, which is biologically my birthday, I don't celebrate, was the day my brother passed away. So that was the day I left for Denver. And, you know, just trying to focus on your fight camp and always having those emotions come up. It's just one of those things you can't really explain, but no matter how long the time is, it's a hard time. And then the day, Sunday, November 11th, my little cousin passed away. So dealing with both of those anniversaries and on top of all this other stuff that was going on at the fight, that's just, you know, just another thing that when I did win, it just kind of came through in tears and happiness because it means so much to me to be able to, you know, represent myself and, you know, get through these really rough times at this time of year. So.
All right, one more here. Goes, what do you have for Ashley Yoder?
Ashley, as George mentioned, him and I have called some of your fights in the past, and the one thing that stands out in one of your fights is the amount of people that come to support you, and that got my wheels churning a little bit. And I thought about UFC in Anaheim. That's 233. It's January 26th. Have you talked to your managers, the matchmakers, about possibly getting on that card in Southern California?
No, that would be so awesome, though. I would be down, so down for that. I did say, you know, I asked if I could stay busy, so hopefully they heard me. You know, I really, really do want to stay busy. I don't want the layoff. I just want to get back in the gym, and I think I really do the best when I stay active. If you watch from Invicta to my first UFC fight was like 2 weeks apart, and I did the best I think, as a competitor I could. So I think keeping me active, and that would be amazing. And of course, like all my fans, I had like everybody from Florida and Indiana at this fight this weekend, and I'm talking like over 60 people came out to see me and just support me, and they know how much this fight meant to me. And I appreciate even the people I don't know, my fans that ride or die for me, like when I have bad decisions, even. So I really enjoy. I do this for the fans. I do this for my family. I do this to entertain. And then the emotional part gets me through my anger management too. So it's a blessing to be a part of the UFC and be able to do what I love.
Ashley, who do you want to fight next? Is there a name out there that can get the wheels turning?
No, and that's probably that you guys are probably going to think I'm lame for this, but I think it's that karma calling people out. So I just take whoever they give me, and I think they pretty match me up with some pretty good fights. Stylistically, that's what makes a good performance is two fighters that come to bring it, and no matter what, I'm win, lose or draw, I'm there to fight. So bloody, I don't care, broken, I'll be there to fight. So. Whoever they think should be next and whoever they think would be a great matchup, I'll take.
How about you versus Michelle Watterson? She recently won. I don't know. I think that might be a good matchup. Timeline works.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, it's crazy because I get that question asked, almost every interview, like, who do you want, who are you going to call out? And it's just, as you know, my teammate Sam, he loves calling people out. I'm just, I like to be that person that, I like to see what they think who I should fight. Coming into UFC, I fought, if you know anything about fighting, which you guys, of course, do, like Justin Kish is no joke. So she was a Muay Thai champion. I stood with her. I had Angela Hill, former Invicta champion, stud fucking fighter, stood with her. Going against Mackenzie Dern, world champion black belt. So they've given me a lot of talented girls, and I think I was able to perform really well for the fans. So anybody they want me to fight, I'm game.
All right. Well, Goes is right. We'd love to see you on the Anaheim card, but I guess we'll just have to wait through the holidays, which you should rightfully enjoy. And then hopefully in 2019 we see your name pop up on a fight booking. And as much as I'd like to see you fight in Las Vegas, you haven't had the best of luck here, so maybe we should just try and aim for the Anaheim card first, and then we'll tackle those Vegas demons.
Yeah. So I hope that would be really awesome. Actually, I forgot about that. It's the end of January.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down for 100%. So we'll see what we can do.
And just to explain our side of it, when we do, not just us, but a lot of media, when we do it, the interviews get recapped, and if there's some sort of a title like Yoder would entertain fighting in Anaheim, and then the matchmaker see it. If there's a buzz, then the matchmaker says, let's do it. Just like Sam Alvey, your teammate you mentioned, what's that saying with the squeaky wheel or whatever? Same thing. If you're making some noise out there, then sometimes those are the ones that might get some love. Otherwise, if you stay a little too quiet, then guess what? You're flying halfway across the world to fight in Poland against someone who's no one's ever heard of the young up-and-comer. You're going to be buried on a Fight Pass card, and it's going to be 1 week after Anaheim, and you're going to be like, oh, man, but sometimes if you make a little bit of noise, you get what you want. So that's why we do extend that opportunity out there.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I appreciate it. You guys, you know what you're doing, so I really definitely would be down for that. So hopefully we can get something to happen.
Let us know if you're ever in Vegas. We'd love to have you here in studio to co-host an episode with us sometime.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Eddie. Excuse me, Ashley. Have a nice day.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right. That's Ashley Yoder, folks. Give her a follow on Twitter. Let's take a quick break, Danny. And I just heard from Tim Means that he'll be ready to go. So we'll call him during the break.
Paid to say things in this cool voice, and they get paid to be lame. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
We're analyzing football from every angle to help you have more fun on Fantasy Sports Radio. From fantasy football to daily fantasy sports, from point spreads to over-unders to player props, office pools, and survivor leagues. There are more ways to win than ever, and for you to benefit as a sports fan. If you love Fantasy Sports Radio, it's on Sirius 210 XM87 and on your phone with the Sirius XM app or at home on connected devices and speakers. Our next guest is Tim Means. He'll be fighting Ricky Rainey at the Tough 28 finale that's coming up here in a few weeks here in Las Vegas. He joins us now on the hotline. What's up, Tim? How you doing?
So, guys, what's new?
Not much, man. How about yourself?
Same stuff here. Dieting, getting close to a holiday, going to watch everybody eat, and then prepare to hurt somebody right after.
Yeah, and for once, in 3 of your last 4 fights, you've had to travel international. And for some fighters, I know they kind of dig it. They get to see part of the world on someone else's dime. But I think when you do 3 of your last 4, you're entitled to, you know, stay a little bit closer to your home. You know, Vegas to Albuquerque's not too far. So I'm pretty sure you're stoked about that, right?
Yeah, super exciting. I don't think a lot of people realize it's the time and effort, the energy it goes into, you know, traveling 23, 22 hours, layovers, having to switch planes. You know, a lot of effort and time goes into that stuff, plus making weight, plus getting there and having to perform. So, you know, I'm excited when I get to check out some places, but I'm ecstatic to be up the street for this fight and still in the States.
Mm-hmm. So you're closing in on about 40 fights, if I'm not mistaken. Tell me how Tim Means has changed, not from day one, but from maybe like 10 fights ago, because you are a veteran of the UFC of about 15 fights, if I'm not mistaken, or you're approaching that number. But how much would you say you've changed, like in the last few years as a fighter, the way you prepare and the way you perform?
You know, I'm just being loose and relaxed, trying to enjoy things and learn new things every day. You know, not trying to be the same old chapter in the same old book. So I think now the old me wanted to stand in front of people and just throw punches and make them shoot takedowns, and the new me is wanting to be a well-rounded martial artist, a guy that can wrestle, grapple, clinch, hit good trips, have a high pace, and just overall smarter training without all the hard sparring and having to prove myself in gym wars and all that crazy crap. I think with all my Muay Thai and my boxing background and MMA, I think it's going to be my 44th professional fight. So things have gotten better understanding with how to diet and how to hydrate, and like I said, just being loose and enjoying the moment and not just rushing through things. So it's been a hell of a journey, and I'm happy where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to shake off the last 2 losses? They both went down to split decisions, and I know any loss sucks. I'm sure getting finished probably is the worst, but you know, these split decisions, damn, when one judge had it your way, when you know you were close, have they bothered you a lot, or have you been able to shake them off and just continue on your journey?
Yeah, it haven't bothered me at all. You know, the Bilal fight I took on 3 weeks' notice. I haven't heard him chime in on my name at all when he's wanting to fight people, but there's no way he doesn't think that there's a rematch in the future. He's doing well, so I just got to get a couple fights, one fight strung together, and I think we need to see each other again. I think, you know, I'm owed that since his guy pulled out, you know, right before that fight happened. So, you know, looking back at that fight, just I wasn't as well-rounded as I want to be or I need to be, so that's the stuff that's kind of bothering me. I feel I'm on a 2-fight win streak. In my head and my heart. Went in there, gave him hell, short notice. I fought Sergio Moraes also on 3 weeks' notice, international crossways. Hell, in Australia, I arrived there on a Thursday, you know what I mean? So I didn't get there when I was supposed to. And, you know, a lot of effort comes into this stuff. So people overlook that stuff and then shadow it with, oh, he just didn't perform or whatever. But there's a lot of things going on in there. These guys, every one of these outings are against good, tough guys. Everybody in the top 20 or top 15 guys in my book, or top 30 or top 12 guys in my book. So Sergio Moraes, he was carried onto the bus after the fight. You know, I walked with my own 2 feet, so UFC paid me accordingly. So I feel in my head I've won these fights, and I just have to be more violent coming out this fight, and I need to get a finish and push the throttle a little bit better and a little bit more in these fights. But being right up the street, I know that endurance, that cardio is going to be there. I'm not going to have the wasted energy of a short notice weight cut and 24 hours of traveling. So I'm ready to rock and roll.
please tell me the UFC gives you more than just a thank you, man. That is two tough situations. Late notice. Hey, you got to fly to Australia. Hey, you got to fly to Brazil. Not too many fighters would take that on.
Yeah, man. I took those two things on. I'm sitting 9 months later, and that's kind of aggravating. At the same time, I talked to Sean Shelby in Dallas, and he apologized for the time frame it's taken to get me matched. We went through eight different guys in my last, or 8 different guys for this fight right here, or 7 different guys, something like that, to get a yes said. I'm not saying guys are ducking me or whatever. I think a lot of people were busy. I'm thinking timing just wasn't right for some people. They were, whatever the case was, we went through a bunch of guys, and 9 months later, I don't like sitting that long. So, like I said, I have to show up, I have to stand out, and I have to have a call-out list in my pocket waiting.
I can tell Tim means business.
Like that.
Yeah, he's always been a pretty intense guy. We've gotten to know him here when he's come by the studio, but there's a chip on his shoulder for this fight. That's a dangerous Tim Means we're talking to. All right, let's take it to Goes here. Goes, what do you have for Tim Means?
That word is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Your intensity and your focus. It's something that I've always admired about your career, but I've often kind of wondered, I mean, when you have a day off, where does all that go? Are you able to enjoy your day off when you have it?
I'm playing games with the kids, and we're playing Monopoly, and trying to stay one step ahead of all the kiddos. So it's always a scavenger hunt, and it's really time for a fist fight. So I am pumped for this fight. I'm pumped for Vegas. I'm pumped.
We just heard the 25th anniversary show in the UFC, and we heard some of the fighters talking about who inspired them and how they got into the game. And the one question I wanted to ask you about your style. Who inspired that style? Because it's really a very fun style to watch, and you're one of the guys where I almost don't care who you're fighting, because I kind of just want to see you, and I want to see those elbows, those knees, the way you throw with such intensity. Who was the inspiration behind all that?
Well, first off, I appreciate you wanting to watch me fight. Support is outstanding. So I think watching the Pride Days with the old Vanderlei Silva, I thought his intensity and the way he showed up and was in that corner, rolling his wrists out and just that stare and in your face, it just really lived up to that name, the Axe Murderer. I think that was somebody I really looked up to their fight style and their intensity and their just aggression, and it just looked like that guy was in there, and everything that was bothering him in his life, he was laying it all out on the line right there and getting it out of his system, and I could really appreciate that type of fighting style.
All right, let's turn it over to the fight analyst, Dan Tom. Dan, what do you have for Tim Means?
I want to pick right up on that. I watch a ton of fight footage to the point where sometimes I almost feel like burnt out from watching punches and kicks. But I'm not just saying it because you're on the phone, Tim. I love your style, man. The southpaw centric. You'll switch up your stances. But let me ask you: Are you still working with Tom and Arlene Vaughn at HB?
Yeah, I'm still with Tom and Arlene. I'm still with John Judy. Been here at FinHB for 15 years now. So, a lot of my fight style comes from Arlene, who's an old school boxer and kickboxer. So, she's got the Tommy Hearns and the Johnny Tapia and all that stuff in her blood and in her generation right there. So, we try to mimic a lot of those styles, the long, rangy stuff. And, you got to go with the old Mexican boxing and, Sergio Chavez or Chavez Jr. and all those guys that do the inside uppercuts and body shots, and you can find those cool elbows on the inside there. So I like to fight long, and I like to be inside, smelling the sweat and watching the fight leave your veins. So I've been with this team a long time, and they still find the way to get me intense and to light a fire under my ass, if you will. So I'm right here at home and just being loose.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned Arlene Vaughn too. I don't think she gets enough credit. And on the other side of your style, a thing you don't, I think, get enough credit for. We talk a lot about your striking, but your grappling's really underrated, man. And I love grappling. I'm a catch wrestling guy myself. But Tom Vaughn, does he come from a bit of catch wrestling? Do I see some of that in your style translating as far as the way you play on top?
Absolutely, and it's somewhere where I'm frustrated with myself that I haven't shown off more of my ground and pound and my smothering top game. Tom's very sneaky with those things, the little liver shots and the little short hammer fists, and you just really gotta respect those little transitions where you're expecting there to be just a little bit of a grappling transition and get a little hammer fist or elbow dropped on your ear or the side of your cheek. It puts a little smile on your face, and you want to give that back to somebody. So, Tom's one of those guys that's really molded me. And, Coach Arlene, if you guys look back through Harold Carlos Condit and, Ray Borg and these guys that are all coming up, those guys all started right here, with this team right here. And over the years, they've left and done their own thing or whatever. But we can name a who's who on that list that a lot of us look alike. Carlos and I look a lot alike in our striking, except for now. He slowed down. I'm much faster and better looking, so we have that stuff in style because of Coach Arlene and her fluidity and her ability just to put things together and make it look smooth. But all those thigh teeps and the spinning back fist, spinning elbows, that reverse elbow that the Panther landed the other night, the Pantera landed the other night in Denver. We've been working those things for a long time. We just haven't got to pull the trigger on a lot of them just yet, but we know that stuff's out there. So to see an elbow landed like that in Denver the other night, those things we have seen come and go, and it's really cool to see it being adapted in MMA today. So all the athletes are doing an outstanding job of evolving. The damn judges need to get out of their caveman status and start getting on the same page as the rest of us.
Great, fantastic answer there, Tim. Packed a lot in there, but paying justice to things I believe that deserve to be. And as a Tim Means fan, I know I'm supposed to be biased here, but I co-sign with Goes. I enjoy watching your fights, man. I feel like I could talk technique and fights with you for days. But just one last quick thing from me. Looking at your Instagram here, and I see Julian Marquez, UFC middleweight, who is actually becoming a regular co-host of sorts almost on this show. He comes on. We're good friends with Julian, but he gave you a shout-out saying, as a kid growing up watching mixed martial arts, my dad and I would always get pumped to watch Tim Means. That's great that he's a fan, but I got to admit, I was like, Tim Means has been around for a while, but has he been around that long? And, of course, your caption, it said it made you feel old. Do you want to respond to that a bit for fun?
Yeah, I thought it was cool when we talked in the locker room. He's a cool dude, man. He's super funny, and then he said that, and I was like, damn, how old am I? I had to go back and be like, oh, I'm not that old. So, it just shows that how long I've been around fighting. I was a junior in high school when I was fighting my first pro MMA fights, you know what I mean? So, that was back in 03, 04, So it just shows how many fights I have, and, I'm getting some mileage under my belt or whatever, but don't think this old dog can't bite. I still have all my teeth, and I'm ready to rock and roll November 30th.
That's what's up. Tim Means, our guest here. Follow him on Twitter @MeansTim, and Tim will be facing Ricky Rainey at the Tough 28 finale. Tim has 27 wins in his career with like 23 finishes, so he's got an amazing finish ratio. He's one of the most exciting fighters out there, and it's been fun catching up with you, Tim. We really appreciate the time you gave us.
That's always fun.
And I guess we'll see you in a few weeks here in Vegas.
Yeah, thanks, guys. George Goes. Thanks for the talk, and I look forward to being out there and drinking a beer right after this is all over.
That's what's up. You know it. All right, Tim. Take care. All right, we'll see you. And with that, folks, we got to go to our last break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. I already communicated with Sabina Mazo. She's ready to go. She'll be our last guest of the day.
They are the stretch marks on the underbelly of the MMA community. But hey, stretch marks are the new tax. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
All right, guys, let's finish strong. We got one last guest. Really looking forward to talking to her. She's from our neck of the woods, Goes, in Southern California. Saw her a few weeks ago, or months ago, I should say, when I was down at King's MMA for their Friday. You know, on Fridays when they throw down.
Mm-hmm.
I saw her off to the side smiling and laughing and having a good time watching her teammates train. And then I got to meet her, you know, because we've had her on the phone, but I've never met her, so I introduced myself really fast. And then all of a sudden I go on Tapology, and I look at the Colombian queen, Sabina Mazo, 5-0. Man, she looks like she is not playing around in that picture, right?
No, she looks
She's got her hands taped up. Look at that. There's no smile there. And that's the Sabina Mazo I've seen on television, just clipping people's heads off with those high kicks. She's gone viral. She's been all over the place, and she's back, folks. Again, on Friday night, LFA 54, she will be headlining that event in Costa Mesa, California. She joins us now on the hotline. Hey, Sabina, how you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, I'd like to kick the head out of the girl.
You certainly have done a good job of it. You know, we're here at the Mandalay Bay Hotel, and so we get to see when, you know, they talk about the big sport events of the week or the weekend, and so we've seen you up there a few times, and you've already gone mainstream. But we look forward to you fighting again on Friday night. The flyweight title, of course, on the line. How do you feel for this camp, and how do you feel for this fight? You're now, I mean, very quickly becoming just like a veteran of big fights with all these big events you've had and some headliners.
Yes, I feel great. You know, I feel I've been like advanced in every fight. That's what I want to show in this fight, the evolution from the last fight, and I feel really prepared, ready. You know, my other fight got canceled, and I think that was a great opportunity to just improve a little bit more. And it's like I'm always training, so I think we could all be in the fight.
Sabina, we are barely able to hear you at times. It kind of goes in and out. Are you on your phone or?
Is it better?
Yeah, that's better. That'll help a lot. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay.
All right. No, but we caught your answer, and it sounds like you're ready for Carol Yariwaki, Brazilian. You know, for this main event and this title fight. And have you thought about on your road to setting your goals? Was that one of them to capture? You know, to get a title, you know, when you start off and maybe get a couple belts before you make it to the higher levels?
Yes, I wanted to defend my belt first and then step in another place or, you know, a different show. But I want to defend my belt first. You know, I think that's what I, like my person says to say, you know, no one told me, oh, no, you have to defend your belt to be the champ. No, but I see it like that, you know, and I felt it was the right thing to do, so that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, and you're fighting in Orange County. How many fans do you think, friends and family, you know, and your fans, do you think will be in attendance to support you on Friday?
I think a lot. I mean, from Kings, I know a lot of people are going to be there, and I think that's amazing because, you know, they're always showing support every single day, and now they can go and enjoy the fun part. So, yeah, hopefully a lot of people can go there and watch me. Mm-hmm. And watch the other fights. I mean, there's a really good fights in LFA this Friday.
Yeah, no doubt. We went over that with Ed Soares earlier today. There's some undefeated. There's like 3 or 4 undefeated fighters. There's like 4 fighters with only 1 loss. Even Carol only has the 2 losses, so they've got some real good talent. Okay, the last question from me, and then I'll turn it over to the co-host here. I saw a cool picture with you, Rafael Cordero, Fabricio Verdum, and Vanderlei Silva. And I wanted to ask you, how long did it take before the veterans of the sport kind of accepted you like that and embraced you, you know, as a future superstar, just like the ones I mentioned?
Oh, well, it was amazing. I love that picture. And, you know, since the beginning, when I first got to Kings, they were really nice and stuff. But, of course, you start building, like, your confidence, and I'm serious about it. You know, I'm not just, like, stepping in this gym and do, like, a training camp like a lot of fighters. It's not bad, but that's not the way I do it. So, yeah, I mean, I built that confidence, and I took the picture, like, the weekend of the last fight when I first got the belt. and it feels amazing, because you can see that they really believe on you. I know
Right.
Master, but Vanderlei and Verdum, and I think it's really cool to be part of this sport, because they really started. They're legends, and I can follow their lead.
Yeah, like the best way I can explain it, 2 years ago, if I see that picture, I would probably go, hey, look, this is Sabina Mazo. She fights out of the gym, and she took a picture with these big stars, And now if I show the picture, I'd go, look at these 3 stars from the King's MMA gym, because you've come a long way, and I think you've always been very professional and very classy, even though you're still a young lady. You really handled yourself well in the sport.
Yeah, thank you. And that's the thing. When I first got to Kings, of course, I took pictures with Master and everything, but I want to be more part of it instead of just being like a fan. That I am a fan of them, of course, but I want to be part of this history of the sport and try to be someone in it.
Well, I'm sure they're fans of you too. All right, let's go to our guys here. Goes, what do you have for Sabina Mazo?
Sabina, last week we spoke to Marlon Vera, and he's a fighter from Ecuador, and we talked about kind of like the rivalries amongst South America, and he was talking about representing Ecuador. In your case, Colombia, and you're fighting somebody from Brazil. Do you feel like at all that there's nationalistic pride on the line as well as just MMA?
I mean, for a lot of fighters, there is. I don't look at it that way, I see it more as my territory, like my belt, and like it's me, it's kill or die, literally, and I see it like that. It doesn't matter which part of the world you are. I see it that way. But of course, you can. There's a lot of fighters that they do feel like kind of something between the nationalities and stuff. But I personally don't. I just want to kill someone in there. It doesn't matter where they're from.
A lot of in your career, you've already had a lot of highlight finishes that we can all talk about. But overall, when you look at what things to come, are there any specific type of finishes that you haven't had? That something kind of like on your MMA bucket list that you've always wanted to finish a fight a certain way?
Yes, a lot, man. I have a lot of goals. I want to finish a fight, of course, in the ground with a submission. I see a TKO. I want to do that too. I feel like I'm aggressive, and I can find the spot for that. And I mean, any finish, of course. We all want to finish the fight, but I just want to like chase them and feel them that they can do anything, and in that point, finish the fight. So yeah, I mean, there's so many things, of course, that I want to do, but yeah, I'll do anything for it.
All right, Dan, Tom, our fight analyst, finish up. What do you have for Sabina Mazo?
Hey, Sabina, speaking of the ground, I wanted to ask you about that. Of course, we all know King's MMA. We all know Master Rafael Cordero. But I don't know if the jiu-jitsu instructor, Ricardo Testai, I believe the last name is pronounced, if he gets enough credit. Is that who you mainly work with? And can you tell us a little about him and his presence over at King's MMA?
Yeah, so I do train with him. He's my jiu-jitsu coach over here with Benny also. He also teaches a lot of stuff from jiu-jitsu. And, yeah, he always teaches here the jiu-jitsu. I think he has a great game. He's a big guy and trains, with Verdum and other people. So, and I think it's pretty good. I see how I've been evolving in my jiu-jitsu and my ground game. And I feel pretty confident with it, and I think that's more than enough for me. So, yeah, I mean, of course, I'll be super happy to prove that and to show that he's a great jiu-jitsu instructor or professor.
And Sabina, my last question, this is kind of just a shot in the dark, if you will, but obviously you love fighting, and we can hear you talk about it, and your passion for it is very genuine, and that's very appreciated. But I was just curious, we just had Ashley Yoder on, another fighter, and we hear a lot of these stories, especially inspiring of females, that they fight for not just because they love the sport, but sometimes they want to overcome something in their past life or adversities they've went through, whether it's losing someone, drugs, alcohol, or just, poverty, many different stories. So I guess what I'm asking you, Sabina, is there a story that maybe we don't know about you as far as what inspires you on your journey through mixed martial arts?
To be honest with you, passion. I had, thank God I had opportunities in life, and And, you know, I live well in Colombia. I mean, I was not the richest person, of course not, but I have opportunities. You know, I had a house, a good school, a good family. I was always, like, disciplined in school and stuff. So, yeah, I was a normal person, you know. And, but it's just passion, you know. I think this sport just moves me. And I think when you do something that your body can stop, it's just, yeah, it's unstoppable. It's something you don't even know how to describe because it comes from inside.
At what age did you move from Colombia to United States?
When?
Yeah, what age?
You asked?
Yeah, what age were you?
I was 19.
19. Okay, so recently. And
yes, I'm 21.
Was there a particular fight or fighter that you saw when you were in Colombia that actually drew you to mixed martial arts?
Yes, totally. Chris Cyborg.
Chris Cyborg.
I love that girl, man.
Okay, so
yeah,
I'm sure you've met her over there at King's or at least in the area, right?
Yeah, I've seen her in the area. I met her a couple of times. She's so humble. And I think that's one of the things I really admire from her is that she's really humble with everyone. And she didn't even knew who I was a couple of years ago when I got here, and she didn't even care. And she treated me the same way she treated other people. And so, yeah, I always, since the beginning, I think I kind of follow her and use her as like a image of inspiration.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think the other time we talked to you, you said that when you fight, a lot of people in Colombia watch, whether it's friends and family. Is that still the same?
Yeah, they're all the time, even more and more people, and I'm super happy that is happening because, you know, it's not that it's a really new sport, but it's growing. It's still like really new into people, and you can see that there's even more and more fighters or fans and people asking about the sport. So I'm really happy that I can, you know, be one of the first fighters from there that can represent Colombia outside.
You're already doing a great job of it. Keep things going. Friday night, you know, we'll be tuning in. Yariwaki versus Mazo in the main event. I should say Mazo versus Yariwaki. You're in the red corner. But thank you so much, Sabina, for always making time for us. We really appreciate it. I hope you have a safe weight cut, and good luck on Friday.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That is Sabina Mazo, folks. Keep an eye on her, man. Future is bright for her. Let me go over some Twitter handles. Tim Means, @MeansTim. Ashley Yoder, @Ashley Yoder MMA. Sabina Mazo, @Sabina Mazo. And Ed Soares, at Ed Blackhouse MMA. So those were our 4 guests today. Again, thanks to Ryan Bevins for lining up the first one and the last one. I got to give a shout out to myself for lining the 2 in the middle.
Shout out, fantastic.
Shout out to myself. Yeah. Tomorrow, I guess, Ghost has some stuff cooking. Do you have a preview yet, Ghost? Or
yeah, we're gonna.
Should we stay tuned?
UFC lightweight James Vick.
Okay.
And I believe Luis Smoka will also join us.
Oh, he's back in the UFC.
Yeah, and then we may have one more guest that I'm still working on.
All right, cool. Yeah. I'm also trying to preview Friday a little bit. I think one of the Shevchenko sisters might be with us, so we'll see. And I'm sure we'll finish strong like we always do. But that's been a fun show. I was telling the guys, it's been a while since we've had more than 3 guests. That was 4. But, yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I guess I told a white lie when I said I'd be looking at the chat to if you had any questions. I didn't.
But you said earlier in the show that you like to lie, so
yeah,
good.
I did. Yeah, I came through. But I'll see if there's any questions there. I'll review them after the show. We'll save them for tomorrow. But thank you all for just participating in there, for watching, for sharing. You know, if you see it out there, all it takes is a retweet, man. Maybe you'll put the show in the hands of somebody that's a big MMA fan. We got to get out of here. All right, for Dan and Danny and Goes, I'm George. Have a nice day. We'll see you tomorrow. Go out there and be a champion.